The October morning mist clung to the red mesas of the Navajo Nation Reservation as Maria Yazzie, 62 and a community health worker for 4 decades, began her daily walk around Window Rock, Arizona. Her weathered hands had delivered babies, tended wounds, and counseled countless souls through their darkest hours. But this morning was different. Beside the weathered welcome sign sat a figure hunched against the cold, a woman with dark hair falling around her face, clutching a duffel bag like a lifeline. Maria approached slowly, her healing instincts assessing the situation. The woman appeared to be in her early 30s, travel-worn, with native features but pale skin. Dark circles under her eyes spoke of sleepless nights, and her posture held the brokenness Maria had seen too many times before. "Sister," Maria called softly in English, then in Diné Bizad. "Shideji." The woman's head snapped up, revealing hazel eyes filled with fear and desperate hope. I'm sorry. I didn't know where else to go. Someone said there was a place here, a community that might—" Her voice trailed off. "What's your name, daughter?" Maria asked gently. The woman's face crumpled. "I don't know. I mean, I had a name, but—" She looked at a crumpled paper in her hand. "My mother left me this letter. She died 6 months ago. She said I was adopted, that my birth mother was from here, from the Diné people. But she never told me who I was before." Maria felt the familiar calling that had guided her through 40 years of healing work. This young woman wasn't just lost. She was spiritually adrift, cut off from her roots. "You're here now," Maria said simply. "Have you eaten?" The woman shook her head, and Maria noticed the tremor in her hands. "Come. My name is Maria Yazzie. Let's get you food and warmth." As they walked toward Maria's turquoise blue door, the woman kept glancing around, memorizing every detail: distant mountains, scattered homes with solar panels, children's laughter from the playground. "What brings you to our community?" Maria asked. "Chatukisuatur." The letter mentioned Window Rock, and someone in Gallup said there was a traditional healer here who helped people find their families. They described a woman who worked with the community health center. She paused uncertainly. "I hoped someone might remember a baby who went missing 32 years ago." Maria stopped, her hand on the door handle. 32 years ago, the darker days when cultural preservation was a daily battle and children disappeared into systems that didn't understand their heritage. Inside her warm home, filled with traditional herbs and modern medical supplies, Maria studied her guest. Something familiar tugged at her memories: the shape of her eyes, the way she held her head. "What does the letter say?" Maria asked, settling with coffee. The woman unfolded the paper carefully. "My adoptive mother wrote this before she got sick. She says my birth mother was very young, maybe 16, and came from a traditional family, but got involved with dangerous people. There was trouble, and she had to give me up for safety." Her voice caught. "She says my birth mother never wanted to let me go." Maria nodded, remembering stories from those days. Young women caught in impossible situations, families making heartbreaking choices. The letter mentions someone called Maria of the Four Directions, who was supposed to help if I ever came looking. The coffee mug nearly slipped from Maria's hands. 4 Directions. Her ceremonial name when she was beginning her healing training, working with social services to keep Native children connected to their communities. "Tell me, what year were you born?" Maria asked carefully. 1991, October 15th. Maria closed her eyes, traveling back through the years. October 1991. There had been a young woman, barely more than a girl, pregnant and terrified, caught up in drugs and violence. Maria remembered helping her, finding a safe family for the baby. "I think we need to talk to the elders," Maria said slowly. "If your story is what I think it might be, there are people here who would remember more." The sound of vehicles outside drew their attention. David, her nephew, was arriving with the community health team for their monthly meeting. "Would you like to meet others from the community?" Maria asked. The woman nodded, then hesitated. "But I don't know what to call myself. I've been Sarah Miller, but it never felt right. Like wearing clothes that don't fit." Maria smiled. "In our tradition, names are important. They reflect who we are and what we're meant to become. Sometimes the name finds the person." As David approached, Maria made a decision that felt natural. "For now, while we search for your history, what if we call you Hadahonie, she who walks home? It honors your journey and courage." Hadahonie smiled for the first time that morning, and in that smile, Maria saw a glimpse of the strong, connected person she was meant to become. By mid-morning, word had spread through the community with mysterious efficiency. Maria's living room filled with elders and community members, drawn by curiosity and the possibility of helping someone find their way home. The scent of fry bread wafted from the kitchen, where David's wife, Jennifer, insisted on making food. Hadahonie sat in the center, no longer frightened, but not yet comfortable. She shared her story with each arrival, watching weathered faces concentrate, searching decades of memories. Thomas Begay, 87 and the community's eldest, studied Hadahonie with sharp eyes that had witnessed nearly a century of human stories. "Tell me the time again," he said. "What year, what month?" "October 15th, 1991. My birth mother was very young, and there was trouble that made it dangerous for her to keep me." Thomas spoke rapidly in Diné Bizad to Agnes Nez, the community's unofficial historian, who spent her retirement documenting family histories and genealogical records. "Agnes remembers something," Maria translated. "A young woman in fall 1991, maybe 16. She came from the Eastern Reservation, but got involved with drug dealers in Farmington." Hadahonie leaned forward. "What was her name?" "Linda Tso, Bitterwater Clan. A bright girl who fell in with the wrong crowd in high school. When she got pregnant, her family wanted to help, but dangerous people were involved. Men who threatened her and her family." David brought coffee and settled near his aunt. "I remember that time. I was a teenager, but there was talk about young people mixed up with dealers from off the reservation. Some families had to move kids away for safety. Linda came to me in her 8th month," Maria said, memories becoming clearer. "She was scared for herself and her baby. The father was involved in dangerous business. She wanted to keep the baby, but also wanted the child to have a safe life." Hadahonie's eyes filled with tears. "She didn't want to give me up?" "No, daughter. It was the hardest thing she ever did. I remember her holding you for 3 days, talking to you in Diné Bizad, singing traditional songs. She made me promise to tell you she loved you and never stopped thinking about you." Jennifer emerged from the kitchen. "Did you say Linda Tso from Bitterwater Clan? My mother-in-law works at tribal offices in family services. She's been documenting clan relationships for 15 years. If Linda had other children or relatives still around, she'd know." Agnes spoke up. "Linda's family moved away after the trouble, went to New Mexico relatives. But there was a grandmother, Linda's grandmother, who stayed. Rosa Tso lived near Lukachukai until she passed 10 years ago." "Rose was a traditional weaver," Agnes continued. "She always asked about Linda at the trading post. Never heard from her, I think." Hadahonia felt the weight of lost time. A grandmother who died without knowing if her granddaughter was safe. Rose used to say Linda was gifted with traditional songs and healing knowledge, Thomas added. Said it was a shame all that wisdom would be lost. Maria looked at Hadahonia with interest. Have you felt drawn to healing work? Hadahonia nodded shyly. I'm a nurse in Phoenix. Always drawn to helping people, but always felt like something was missing. Like I was only using half of what I was meant to be. The elders exchanged meaningful looks. Healing abilities often ran in families. Jennifer, would your mother-in-law help us search tribal records? Maria asked. Jennifer stepped outside to call, returning with excitement. She definitely knows the Tissot family. Linda's aunt still lives in Chinle. She's in her 60s, and... Jennifer paused dramatically. Linda is alive. She moved back to New Mexico 5 years ago and has been trying to find information about her daughter. The room erupted in surprised conversation. Hadahonia felt her world tilt. Her birth mother was alive and searching too. There's more. Linda became a traditional healer herself, learned from her grandmother and New Mexico elders. Never married, never had other children. She told her aunt she had a daughter who was adopted, and finding her was her greatest dream. Maria took Hadahonia's hand. It seems the spirits have been working on both sides of this reunion for many years. As afternoon wore on and plans took shape for contacting Linda's aunt, Hadahonia felt something new, belonging to something larger than herself, part of a story that began before her birth and would continue after. Most importantly, surrounded by people who welcomed her without question, she began understanding what community meant, being held by traditions and relationships that could weather any storm. 3 days later, Hadahonia stood at Canyon de Chelly's edge, watching morning light paint ancient cliff dwellings gold and red. Maria had brought her here to prepare for the phone call that would change everything. Linda's aunt, Mary Tso, had arranged a conversation between mother and daughter. In our tradition, Maria said, settling on smooth sandstone, reunions aren't just about individuals. They're about healing community breaks, restoring severed connections. When you meet your birth mother, you're meeting your clan, ancestors, your place in relationships that define who we are as a people. Hadahonia nodded, feeling the weight of her ignorance about traditions. I want to understand, but I don't know anything about clans or traditional ways. My adoptive parents were good white people from Oregon. They tried to help me connect with heritage, but didn't know how. That's not your fault or theirs, Maria assured her. Systems that separated Native children didn't consider cultural connection importance. But knowledge can be learned, relationships rebuilt. What matters is you're here now, ready to do the work. They sat in comfortable silence, watching shadows shift across the canyon floor. Hadahonia had spent 3 days learning about her clan, family history, and traditions. Agnes taught her basic Diné phrases. David explained the clan system, and Maria shared foundational stories connecting people to land. Maria, Hadahonia said finally, what if she's disappointed? What if I'm not what she hoped for? I don't know the language or ceremonies. I've been living in Phoenix as a nurse. I'm not traditional. Maria smiled, remembering her own struggles balancing traditional knowledge with modern education. Let me tell you about your birth mother. When Linda came to me 32 years ago, she was barely older than you, facing an impossible choice. But even in fear and pain, she insisted on certain things. She wanted you born during traditional time, sang to you in Diné Bizad in the womb, ensured you received a traditional blessing before adoption. Hadahonia's eyes widened with surprise. She made me promise that if you came looking for heritage, I'd help you understand that being Diné isn't just about knowing language or ceremonies. It's about how you treat people, understand your relationship to the world, carry yourself as a representative of your people. She hoped you'd grow up helping others, building bridges between communities. And here you are, Maria continued, a nurse dedicated to healing people. You've been living your heritage without knowing it. The phone call was scheduled at Mary Tizot's house in Chinle. The drive took them through beautiful southwest country, red mesas, wide valleys with grazing sheep, small communities where children played and elders watched the world. Mary's modest home had solar panels and a traditional hogan in back. She met them with silver-streaked hair and the same striking eyes Hadahonie saw in mirrors. "So you're Linda's girl," Mary said, pulling Hadahonie into a fierce hug. "I can see her in your face. She's going to cry when she sees you." Inside, the house smelled of coffee and sage, walls covered with family photographs spanning generations. Mary led them to a sitting area with a small altar, sage, cedar, corn pollen, and a photograph of an elderly woman who must be her great-grandmother, Rose. "Before we call Linda," Mary said, "there are things you should know about your mother's life since she made the hardest decision of her life." Mary painted a picture of a young woman who struggled with guilt and loss for years, threw herself into traditional healing as a way of honoring the daughter she couldn't raise, never stopped hoping for reunion while respecting her choice to keep her child safe. Linda became a powerful healer. She worked with families who lost children to adoption, helping them process grief and maintain spiritual connections across distance. She worked with adopted Native children, trying to reconnect with heritage. In many ways, she's been preparing for this moment her entire adult life. When time came for the call, Mary dialed with steady hands, passing the phone to Hadahonie. The ringing seemed endless. Then a warm, nervous voice answered with familiar rhythmic cadence. "Hello? Mary? This is your daughter," Hadahonie whispered. Silence stretched like eternity. Then a sound part sob, part prayer, part laughter. "Shiaj, my daughter. Is it really you? I think so, I hope so. I've been looking for you. And I've been looking for you. Every day for 32 years. They talked for 2 hours, bridging 3 decades with words that came haltingly, then rushed. Linda told her about the traditional name she'd given her, Hastin Ba'ali Yaji, little medicine person, and prayers said morning and evening. Hadahonie told her about adoptive family, education, nursing work, and lifelong feeling something essential was missing. "I want to meet you," Linda said finally. "See your face, hear your voice without telephone between us. But I want you to know whatever relationship we build won't erase lost years. We'll discover each other as we are now, not as mother and baby we were then. I understand. I want to learn about our family, traditions, who I was meant to be." They planned for Linda to drive to Window Rock the following weekend. She'd stay with Mary, and they'd have time to talk, share stories, begin building relationships based on who they'd become, rather than who they'd been forced to leave behind. When the call ended, Hadahonie felt emptied and filled simultaneously. The woman who gave birth to her was real, alive, coming to meet her. But she was also a stranger who'd lived an entire unknown life. "It's normal to feel overwhelmed," Maria said gently. "You've opened a door closed for 32 years. It will take time to walk through it." As they drove back in late afternoon light, Hadahonie felt something settle in her chest. Not desperate searching that drove her to seek birth family, but quieter anticipation. She was about to meet her mother, but also discover what belonging to a welcoming community meant. For the first time in her adult life, she wasn't running toward or away from something. She was simply coming home. Saturday morning arrived with high desert clarity. Hadahonia had barely slept, but felt more alert than in years. Maria helped her choose appropriate clothes. A traditional turquoise velvet shirt Agnes insisted on lending, jeans and her grandmother's silver bracelet, the only native jewelry her adoptive mother had preserved. They gathered at Mary Tisso's house, but this time filled with more family. Word had spread that Linda was coming home, and relatives from across the reservation drove in to witness the reunion. Cousins, aunts, and friends filled chairs and lined walls, creating a circle of support. "Is she nervous?" asked Sandra, Mary's niece and local teacher, about Hadahonia's age. "Terrified," Hadahonia admitted with nervous laughter. "But also ready, I think." David and Jennifer brought their children, and watching them play with easy confidence of children who knew exactly where they belonged, Hadahonia felt a pang of longing. She wondered what growing up surrounded by extended family would have been like. "Don't romanticize it too much," Sandra said quietly. "I grew up here and still struggled with identity, still felt caught between traditional ways and modern opportunities. Being connected to heritage doesn't solve life's complexities. It gives you a different framework for understanding them." At 11 o'clock, they heard a vehicle pulling in. Through the window, Hadahonia saw a worn pickup with New Mexico plates. Her heart hammered as a woman got out, smaller than imagined, with graying hair braided down her back, clothing speaking of tradition and practicality. Linda Tso stood beside her truck, looking toward the house with an expression Hadahonia recognized, longing, fear, and hope that had sustained them both through decades of separation. Mary greeted her niece, embracing before walking toward the house. Through the window, Hadahonia saw Linda speaking rapidly in Diné Bizad, hands moving with emotional gestures. When they entered, the room quieted except for children playing. Linda's eyes moved around faces until finding Hadahonia, and the world narrowed to just them. Hadahonia stood slowly, legs unsteady. Linda approached carefully, as if approaching a deer that might bolt. "Shiyaj," Linda said softly, then in English, "My daughter." They stood looking at each other for what felt like hours, but was probably seconds. Linda was shorter by several inches, but their bone structure was clearly related. Same cheekbones, way of holding heads, hands with long, expressive fingers. "You're beautiful," Linda said, voice thick with emotion. "You look like your great-grandmother when young, but also like yourself, your own person. I've wondered about you every day," Hadahonia replied. "Even when I didn't know I was wondering, there was always this sense someone was missing." Linda reached out tentatively, and when Hadahonia didn't pull away, cupped her daughter's face. "I need you to know, giving you up wasn't about not loving you. It was about loving you so much. I wanted you to have safety, opportunities, a life I couldn't give you then." "I know," Hadahonia said, realizing she truly understood. Maria explained about the situation, the danger. "You protected me." They sat on Mary's couch, surrounded by respectful but supportive family. Linda pulled out a small beaded bag, withdrawing photographs, baby hair, and jewelry. "I saved these for you. Your first haircutting at 1 day old. A photograph of you sleeping. The bracelet my grandmother made before you were born." She pulled out one more item, paper with careful handwriting. "And the traditional name I gave you, written in both languages with meaning explained." Hadahonia took the paper with trembling hands. "Hastin by Alia Yaji," Little medicine person. I could see it in you as a baby, Linda explained. How you responded to traditional songs seemed to calm people just by being near them. I hoped wherever you went, that gift would manifest. It did, Maria interjected with a smile. She's a nurse. She's been healing people her whole adult life. Linda's eyes filled with tears. The spirits knew what they were doing. They spent the day sharing stories, looking through photographs, beginning the slow process of building relationships that honored both shared past and separate journeys. Linda told stories about family, traditions, ceremonies, and healing work she dedicated her life to after losing her daughter. Hadahonie talked about adoptive family, education, phoenix work, and growing sense she needed to understand origins to fully understand herself. What happens now? Hadahonie asked as afternoon shadows lengthened. I have a job, a life in Phoenix, but I feel like I've discovered a missing part of myself. Linda smiled. Now we take it one day at a time. I'm not trying to replace the mother who raised you, and you don't need to become someone you're not to fit our family. We'll figure out how to be in each other's lives, honoring who we both are now. But I want to learn, Hadahonie said quickly. I want to understand traditions, language, healing practices. I feel like I've been doing this work as a nurse, but only with half the tools I was meant to have. Maria and Linda exchanged meaningful looks. Traditional learning requires commitment and proper protocols, Maria said carefully. But if you're serious about walking that path, there are teachers who would work with you. I could teach you some things, Linda offered. And there are other healers in New Mexico who work with people reconnecting with traditional ways. Many of our people are reclaiming knowledge interrupted by adoption, boarding schools, other cultural disruption. As day wound down, Mary called everyone together for traditional blessing. The family formed a circle, offering prayers in Dine Bizad for healing separation, strengthening family bonds, and guidance as mother and daughter built their new relationship. When Linda left, she hugged her daughter tightly. This isn't goodbye. This is the beginning of something that should have started 32 years ago but couldn't. We have time now. I'll visit you in New Mexico, Hadahonie promised, and maybe I'll think about moving closer. I love being a nurse, but wonder if there might be ways to do that work here, in Indian country, combining traditional and modern healing. Linda smiled through tears. Your great-grandmother would be so proud. She always said the best healers were ones who could walk in both worlds. As Linda's truck disappeared, Hadahonie stood with Maria and extended family that had claimed her. She thought about the names, Little Medicine Person and She Who Walks Home. I think, she said to Maria, I'm ready to be both, the person who walks home and the person who heals. Maybe they're the same thing. Maria put her arm around her. In our tradition, the most powerful healing happens when someone finds their way back to who they were always meant to be. You're just beginning to discover that person. 6 months later, Hadahonie worked at the Indian Health Service Clinic in Window Rock, combining nursing skills with traditional healing methods she was learning from Linda and other teachers. She had found an apartment near Maria's house, and her mornings often began with the same walk that brought them together, checking on community, greeting dawn, ensuring no one was forgotten. She was home, not just geographically, but spiritually, part of relationships stretching back generations and forward into a future where traditional knowledge and modern skills work together to heal individuals and communities. Sometimes, walking early morning paths, she thought about other people who might be sitting at edges of tribal lands, clutching letters or memories or hope, waiting for someone to see them and say, "Come inside." Let's figure this out together. In those moments, she understood her homecoming was just the beginning of a larger story about healing, family, and the medicine that happens when communities refuse to let anyone remain lost.